Oh, this one's literally probably one of my favorites. Okay, let's unpack culture fit. Culture fit. What does it mean to you, and how does it play a role in assessing a potential candidate? And I need to start off by saying, like, I am really curious about your take on culture fit, because it's something, we're talking about terms that get thrown out there that are misunderstood potentially across
maybe not the right terms.
All these things. Culture fit is one of those ones that comes up quite often in franchisor rooms and space. So I'm really curious to hear your take on it.
So culture fit for me is a term that belongs in a trio of other terms. So I would say culture fit, culture add, and values alignment. There's some interplay between all three of those things. And I'll
rewind. What are the three?
So culture fit, culture add, and values alignment are three.
Okay.
There's some interplay between the three of them. They can be friends, but they each have their own meaning and their own role. And so to me, culture fit kind of speaks to what we are doing, what already exists as a culture within our system. And I think there's a risk if we focus only on culture fit. Our risk is if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got. And what are you missing? If we're not considering what we're missing, if we focus only on culture fit, there is a risk. Culture add, I tend to have a little bit of a preference to culture add over fit. I think culture add is about thinking about what fresh ideas, what fresh perspectives, hot perspectives you might bring, you might be able to bring into your network, right? Like what can enrich the system?
Yes.
The question behind culture add is how can we enrich the system? And I think that's a little more exciting of a question. And then the third term that I think has some interplay there is values alignment. And I actually, here's my conspiracy theory. I think when people say culture fit, in their heart, they probably actually mean a lot of the time values alignment. And values alignment is really important. I think values alignment is about things like commitment to service, things like integrity, things like community focus, the values of the brand. Does the candidate have the same values as the brand? Do those values that are fundamental align? And a value is different than culture. If I can say that. So that's my little.
And values are different than culture.
Yeah.
How are values different than culture?
Oh, fantastic question. So values are kind of like core motivations to me. Values are those guiding lights that we follow. It's part of the brand identity and part of how we grow and who we are. It's
how
the
we show up in the world.
How we show up. But culture is a little bit different. Culture lives in the day-to-day. Culture lives in the attitudes and the language and the ways we interact with each other. Culture is in the day-to-day. And that's what can be a little bit different, right? Culture is in how we dress. Culture is in how we show up in the morning. Culture is, even in office culture, right? The person who shows up to work, and they're dressed in a bright color, and everyone else at the office looks like they called each other that morning to coordinate what they were wearing, right? Culture is a little bit different. And culture can sometimes make people feel excluded or actually exclude them beyond just feeling excluded. They can actually exclude people because it's saying we're only going to accept you if you fit into this mold that we've kind of built. So culture fit is not necessarily where I would prioritize my time. I would prioritize values alignment. I think that's a lot more integral to the business.
Yes.
And I would also consider value add. How can I enrich the organization through the candidates that I'm helping bring into the system? And that's not saying that you can't ever bring in two candidates who have similar stories and perspectives. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is don't limit to that.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad that you kind of spent some time on how those two things are different.
Yeah.
How
do you think they're different?
Yeah,
do I get to ask questions too?
Of course. Of course. Values for me is the things that, the parts of you that hold you together, irrespective of who you're in front of, what environment you're in. It's the things that you hold true to, even when no one's watching.
Yep.
Culture for me is more of a, so values is the foundation and culture is the dressing, like how you show up, the energy you choose to bring, how you choose to wear your hair, what you choose to wear, the energy that you bring to the space. And where I kind of see culture fit, and even some of the other terms that you used, jumbled and muddy, is when they're used as the sole thing to disqualify or sometimes qualify a candidate. And I think as a leader, it's important to pause and just ask deeper questions. So for me, when I would, let's say, pass on a candidate and someone says, well, I interviewed them and I didn't think they were a great fit, culture fit, I always ask why. And not just why, give me your reason, but why, give me your reason, and can you also provide some examples? What about how they answered that question made you think they didn't have a culture of food safety or value for food safety? Maybe that's really important here. What about how they showed up made you think that they weren't taking things seriously, or that they disrespected your time because they were 5 minutes late?
Yeah. Or this is one. So there was a candidate, and I usually do interviews in pairs. I think it's really great for just making sure that I check my own biases too. So I typically interview in pairs.
That's a good tip.
There was a candidate, and this one happened to be a face-to-face interview. Nowadays we tend to do them virtually, but this candidate showed up and they chewed gum for the duration of their interview. And I remember my co-interviewer at the time felt like that was incredibly disrespectful. But let's stop and think about that for a moment. We don't know that. We don't know that they intended anything by popping a piece of gum into their mouth. Why do we think that?
In fact, they might be thinking,
I have bad breath, I should be respectful. Right? Maybe it was,
I want to make sure I have the freshest of breath. If they're going to remember something about me, it's going to be my breath.
Right? Yeah. So we need to stop and just think about that for a little bit, right? Because that kind of calls back to culture. Well, we don't chew gum in the office here. It's okay, but that's what we're gonna disqualify. Listen, Frank Dev is hard. You're gonna, you know how hard we work to get candidates, and then the actual conversion rate, it's rough out there. Sometimes there's economic pressures, there's competition out there. Qualified candidates, man, if you're gonna turn someone down over chewing gum, I hope you have a full pipeline.
Right. Right. Yes, and good for you for also bringing that perspective and asking those questions, because it's your co-interviewer might also have been brought up in an environment even outside of your workplace environment, a personal experience where they're I've been always taught that this is very disrespectful, or this means you don't. There's actually this is a little no, actually let's talk about it, because we both have restaurant backgrounds, and we know that food safety is paramount. It is everything. It takes one food safety incident to completely
and the empire
crumble a brand, right? Not to mention, I want to feel good about telling my friends or family, go and enjoy a meal here, right? I want to be proud of my brand. And something I think is really important in the recruitment process, as we talk about culture and we talk about values and kind of how those intermingle. I've met some great operators in my time, mean well, intend well, follow the systems and the rules. but may question a specific decision. I'm going to use food safety because I'm here in Brampton. We're in Brampton today, and there's been a lot of news in social media, specifically around food safety and restaurants here in this city. And I want to spend some time unpacking a little bit how a culture of food safety, how important it is to a brand, and where we can spend more time building that culture, because culture can be built, culture can
Absolutely.
be taught, culture can change.
Culture
The
should
values
change sometimes.
is at the foundation
Yeah.
don't really change much, but that culture shifts and flows. And when I see the food safety culture starting to change with a brand, especially a food brand that I personally have a connection to, or I want to see do well and thrive, I think there's some work to do around establishing and differentiating when someone maybe comes from a different experience or standard of what food safety looks like and is expected to be in another part of the world versus here in Canada or in North America. And it's not just about this and us versus them. We're right, they're wrong, we're forward, they're backward. We flip it and look at places like Europe. There are foods and products that are approved here in North America that would not be approved in places in Europe. So when I talk about different expectations around food safety and what that means around the world and in different places, how do you see that getting the attention, more of the attention and the time that it deserves at the fran, dev, and recruitment stage, so that we're not dealing with so many food safety crises down the line? Where do you think the disconnect is happening? Where do you think we can make some changes to start closing the gap on that? Because I am seeing a lot more of it, especially here in the city.
Yeah, I mean, this
and
is
it's
a
a long-winded
question,
but I wanted to give some context.
I may not be super aware of what's happening here in Brampton. I'm from Kingston, and I'm in for the day hanging out with you. I'm happy to be here. But I have, I think, a sense of kind of what you're talking about, the different sort of cultural challenges and the differences. When we talk about food safety as a culture, to get from behavior to culture, I think, is the question that we're exploring here. A behavior is things like keeping your temp logs, making sure you're managing your time temperature, making sure that your, sanitizer is being tested at the appropriate concentrations, all those things. Those are behaviors.
Yes.
How do we go from behavior to culture? And in my opinion, the answer is buy-in. Yes. And how do you get buy-in? You help people understand
the why. Yes.
The why. So I think, and I'll talk about the fran dev side of it in a minute, but I'm gonna call back to my restaurant days. Which I look back so fondly. I wouldn't be surprised if I ended back in the four walls of a restaurant one day. It was just so much grit and glory, right? Just I loved it.
Excitement of the day, right? You never know what you're gonna get.
I lived for it. It was great. But in terms of getting buy-in to go from what are the desired behaviors and making those behaviors part of culture, beginning from the training process and the ops team, I think we want to really help people understand why. We want to illustrate things like hand washing and things like that why they're important. There's lots of different ways we can teach people. We have to remember that people learn in different methods. Yes. People need to sometimes be shown or taught things in more than one way or more than one time. You cannot just say, well, I gave you that one virtual boring course one time, so you should know everything. There's ways we can teach people. An athlete. An athlete doesn't
they don't go to the gym one time and say, now I'm ready.
I say that. I've not even gone to the gym one time, but athletes go more than once, I imagine.
They build the habits. They practice it.
They do.
Yes.
So it's those things that we build the habits, we practice. We allow space for people to ask questions, share their experience, and sort of ask why we do things the way that we do. I think again, the key from going from just desired behaviors and checklists to culture is buy-in, and we can do that in training and ops. I think is a place where that lives pretty well. But from a Fran Dev perspective, it's a great question as well. I think from a Fran Dev perspective, you know, if we are talking about experience versus skills and what skills have been taken from experience, we can ask questions that help us understand where the candidate is at in their current understanding of food safety practices here, right? We can ask questions, you know, about like, hey, like, are you familiar with time temperature controls? What does that mean? Do you know what the danger zone is? Yeah.
Yes.
And don't ask them like this. Don't go, do you know what the danger zone is? You can ask openly. Sometimes it's just tone. Do you know what the danger zone is? I've never heard that before. Oh, well, it's actually, you know, this specific range of temperatures where bacteria grows more quickly.
Yeah.
Right? We help people understand. So we can have those conversations early on. I think another great place for food safety to really be featured is in that workshop or discovery day, that hands-on day. We can have little conversations about it and kind of talk about it early in the process, but I think it lives in a hands-on environment.
100% agree.
And honestly, so here is a theory I have, and you're the one who's, you know, more like currently in the ops world. My theory is how you choose to structure your days and your training program, what you choose to teach first and what you choose to teach last should be two of your most impactful things. Right? If you choose, for example, the first in-restaurant training day, you spend that day on food safety, cultural, you know, practices in your restaurant, you're sending a message to that candidate is that food safety is so important that we don't do anything else till we've done this.
Yes. That matters.
Right?
That matters.
Like, I think that the order in which you train, I think can make a bit of a difference as well. So I think that it's such an interesting topic because you're absolutely right. Our standards are different. Just because someone else comes from another way doesn't mean they're dirty or gross. It doesn't mean that they can't comply with Canadian laws and standards.
Yes.
But again, our job as a franchisor is to teach.
Acknowledge that and then develop the systems, processes, and put the resources behind making sure that doesn't become...
My goodness, they're paying a royalty for something, aren't they?
Yes.
I would hope.
Yes, they're our customers too, right? Franchisees and franchise partners are customers too. Yeah, and I think just to add on to that, because there is the franchise partner and candidate recruitment, but there's also the tools that we develop to support leaders in hiring people for their own businesses. How are we building those systems and processes to support the food safety culture? Or are we just telling them on day one of their orientation and then never talking about it again, or only talking about it when, you know, an audit gets done, you know, a month or two from now? So what you measure, what you talk about, what you focus on becomes a part of that culture, becomes top of mind. And
you know what's so funny? This is like anecdotal, and it's a story I picked up outside of franchising in restaurants. My little sister is a teacher. She's an educator. And so sometimes I'll be talking to her, and then immediately after, my algorithm feeds me like educator content, which is awesome. And I actually think it's pretty cool. And I was discussing with her, I think this was years ago now, teachers were trying to show kindergarten classes the importance of hand washing, which is important in kindergarten and beyond.
Yes.
Right? And
for everyday life.
For everyday life.
Yes.
What the teacher did is she covered her hands in paint, in wet paint, and she proceeded to walk around the classroom and, like, you know, touch things, you know, and it just showed the transfer of paint. And she goes, this paint is like germs. The only difference is we cannot see the germs and the bacteria. And so we have to wash our hands. And how do we wash our hands? Do we do 10 seconds shake dry? And she did that. And of course, green paint all over her hands, right? I think it was such a visual way to do it. And like, I'm an adult. I know that hand washing is important. I have never forgotten that TikTok.
Powerful.
So I think outside of the box, think about interesting, fun, memorable ways that we can show the importance of things to people.
And a key part of what you just shared there, so thank you very much for sharing it, is knowing your audience.
Yeah, knowing your audience. Because there's
Right?
people that like that's maybe a little too little kid for, and it might not.
But could
be
you imagine
appropriate.
taking an ops manual to a kindergarten class and
That's
being
it.
like,
Yeah,
read this and do this, right? It's probably not going to land. It's probably not going to resonate. So knowing your audience, and when you know that your audience looks like this, learns like this, might come from a culture that has this expectation or standard around something as important as food safety, it should be baked into everything that you do all the time. And I think that's a really great question to unpack. And
absolutely.
I love that we spent time here, because culture fit is just one of those questions. Yeah.